Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Became a Gangster Part 3. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Naruto struggled to contain his excitement. Because of his anxiety, his heart beat quickly inside his chest. But how could he not be happy? He had not only taken control of his own gang, but also of the bridge builder's grandson. He needed to find the mother now, but first he needed to find out where she was. His subordinates had the grandson, so they had to know where the mother was. Naruto unknowingly smiled his dark smile once more, but he had to earn their trust. He had won their trust, but only through fear. Fear of the possibility of murder. Naruto would be able to control them as long as he wielded terrifying dominance. Who would have guessed? Perhaps his leadership will earn him their admiration and loyalty. Naruto motioned to Haku to activate the ice mirrors. To Naruto's surprise, Haku emerged from one of the mirrors with a puzzled expression. Naruto had never seen the boy's normally calm and collected expression before. Haku said quietly, as calmly as he could, "Are you certain? They aren't the most devoted bunch. If they have the opportunity, they will most likely turn on you." As if I'm going to give them a chance, Naruto replied with his famous trademark smile. "We'll use them for as long as we need them. We'll put their loyalty to the test and see how far they'll go. I'll give them to you once they've outlived their usefulness." This appeared to put Haku at ease because he had followed Naruto's order. The ice melted into water, leaving a dark stain on the ground. Naruto's new subordinates continued to bow before him, which the blonde could easily get used to. But Naruto still needed to test the loyalty of his new henchmen, which he would do later. But first, Naruto had to look after the bridge builder's family. Naruto's first official order was to untie the bridge builder's grandson. "Sir." "Yes." Two of the men approached the young boy and undid the ropes without hesitation. They brought the grandson up to Naruto, one holding the boy's shoulder and the other holding his katana ready. Naruto motioned the guard to lower his katana and asked the boy calmly, "What's your name?" "Like I'm going to tell you," he replied. Naruto's face contorted into the evil grin he had earlier. "Is that any way to treat the guy who saved your life?" Naruto growled as calmly as he could. Naruto's tone of voice must have been chilling. The grandson began to quiver as those words left his mouth. After a few moments of silence, the boy finally said, "Inari ... My name is Inari." "Nice to meet you, Inari," Naruto said. "Where is his mother?" he said to his subordinates. There was an awkward silence among the subordinates, who were obviously too afraid to respond. Was it possible that the mother had died? Or were they simply concerned that Naruto would react violently to their response? Naruto needed to find Inari's mother so that they could be returned to the bridge builder. If the bridge could be completed, the Konoha nin would leave and Naruto would be able to come out of hiding. A few frustrating moments of silence passed before Naruto turned to Haku and said, "Feel free to make them talk." Haku gladly accepted the order. On his face was a calm but dangerous smile. The boy took several senbon needles from his pocket and held them between his fingers. Just as Haku was about to strike, one of the subordinates knelt and cried out, "Wait a minute, Boss Kitsune. Please forgive us." Haku came to a halt just in time to save the man from being impaled by the senbon needle. Naruto approached the groveling man and inquired, "And you are?" "Please forgive us, Kaisen Iji," he replied. We have no idea where the bridge builder's daughter is." "Don't?" Naruto inquired, his voice concerned. "Yes sir, we were only able to track down the bandit who kidnapped the bridge builder's grandson. The one called Zuri?" Iji said fearfully. "Zuri." Naruto recognized that name. Gato dispatched Zuri as one of the bandits to capture the bridge builder's family. It was natural for them to flee after Gato's death. So, if they apprehended Zuri, Waraji was the one who apprehended Inari's mother. What happened to him? Naruto inquired, trying hard not to show his excitement. Iji gave Naruto a hesitant look. His eyes were filled with fear and rage. "We killed him," Iji said softly. Naruto clenched his fist. "The idiots murdered the only person who could lead them to Inari's mother." "Did he mention anything about the boy's mother?" Naruto asked, biting his lower lip. "We did question him about the mother," Iji replied, "and he gave us several locations. They were all dead ends." The dishonest liar. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard the words. Locations. Naruto remembered a Ninja Academy lesson about VIPs in hiding. The VIPs were usually moved between several different safe houses on a weekly basis until it was safe for the VIP to surface again. Perhaps some of those locations were used to conceal Inari's mother. It was possible that she was moved on a daily basis, which would explain why she wasn't at any of the specified locations. Of course, if Waraji knew Zuri had been captured, he would have used a different location. Perhaps if they were staked out. Where did he name them? Naruto inquired of IG. Warehouse 27 at the docks, the hot springs along the western end of the village, Gadu's favorite restaurant, the bombed out inn, the broken safe house on the southern end of the village, and the Gadu Corporation building, IG said, still on his knees. Naruto thought about it. With only 5 men at his disposal, he had to keep an eye on 6 different locations. Naruto was certain Inari's mother would not be in the safe house because it was the same one he, Keitaro, and Haku were using at the time. He could dismiss that one, leaving 5 locations and 5 people. He'd have to spread them thin for the time being, because 5 people didn't make a very powerful force. Naruto could walk with them, but he was supposed to be dead. Haku, on the other hand, was not dead or in hiding. Naruto grinned at himself and motioned for his new subordinates to rise. I'm going to assign one of those locations to each of you. I want you to keep an eye on them without raising suspicion. That is the absolute last thing I want. If you see Waraji or the bridge builder's daughter, please contact Haku right away. Is that correct? Naruto stated authoritatively. Each of them had reached an unspoken agreement. Naruto smiled wickedly once more and assigned each of them to their own location. With their tasks in mind, the gang dispersed from the alley, leaving Naruto, Haku, and Inari alone. Naruto faced them, observing Haku's calm demeanor and Inari's panicked expression. It was strange to see 2 people so close in age but so dissimilar in personality standing next to each other. Haku was an accomplished killer with a calm demeanor, whereas Inari was an innocent youth who was terrified out of his mind. Then another issue arose for Naruto. For the time being, Inari needed to be hidden somewhere, but where? Naruto didn't want Keitaro finding out about tonight, so the safe house was out. Specifically, the sections involving the violent takeover of a gang and the capture of the bridge builder's grandson. It was going to be more trouble than it was worth. Since Gadu had them in hiding for a while, Haku might have an idea. Then it occurred to Naruto that he could easily solve his problem. Naruto, wearing a friendly expression, asked calmly, could you take Inari to Zabuza's old hideout, Haku? Which one did Gadu have you 2 hiding in? Of course I could, Haku replied politely, but wouldn't it be better to bring him to the safe house? Naruto shook his head and said, I don't want Keitaro to find out about this. I also don't want people to link this whole thing back to me. Could you please take over the reins for me? I don't see why not, Haku replied, though I'm not sure it's a wise choice. What's the harm? With Zabuza, Haku explained almost calmly, as if referring to an old friend. I usually took orders from him, so I'm not used to giving orders. Neither am I, Naruto replied cheerfully. But that's not the case. The problem is that I need you to relay messages between me and the boys. All right, Haku said, clearly upset. Naruto bowed, thank you, Haku. You're a great pal. When they heard the word, they both fell silent. Although he didn't realize it, he and Haku were both wearing the same perplexed expression for the same reason. Neither of them had ever used or been addressed as a friend before. Haku, unsure how to respond, nodded quietly. Naruto returned the nod. A few awkward moments of silence passed, only broken by the sound of a dog howling in the distance. Thank you once more, Naruto concluded, and tomorrow, go around and see if the guys saw anything. Then stop by the safe house and tell me what they discovered. Naruto inquired. Haku nodded once more, which puzzled Naruto. Why did Haku simply listen to Naruto? To say the least, it seemed strange. Was Haku attempting to gain his trust? It seemed strange because they were all already good friends. Unless Haku was plotting something against him. But why would he do such a thing? It would only be. Naruto took a breather. Was he going insane? He was simply being cautious. Why should he not be? After all, he was playing a dangerous game. All right, Naruto said, smiling, I'll see you tomorrow. Haku returned Kitsune's smile and joked, I'll see you then, Kitsune. As Haku and Inari walked away, Naruto laughed. Naruto turned around and dashed back to the safe house as quickly as he could. The next day passed quickly for Naruto. Keitaro left early the next morning, straightening his suit. He mentioned a meeting with representatives from other organizations before walking out the door. The house was quiet with Keitaro gone and Haku still gone, leaving Naruto to his own devices. The blonde spent the majority of his day sitting quietly in the kitchen, drinking a glass of juice and contemplating how to use his free time to stop the violent gang war raging across the village. The first priority was to save the bridge builder's grandson and daughter. But where would he go after that? In a poor county like the Land of Waves, he had no idea how to manage a gang. More importantly, how did a gang survive in such a poor neighborhood? Drugs and prostitution appeared to be the only viable options, but Naruto was not interested in getting involved in that type of business. It was bad enough to murder someone twice in a week. Naruto became concerned about Haku as he considered every detail. It was late in the day, and dusk was spreading its gloomily beautiful mood across the sky. I hoped he was okay, but what about Inari? There would be nothing but trouble if the boy was injured. Naruto was jolted back into reality by a soft knock on the door. Kitsune. Haku here. Haku's voice could be heard from beyond the wooden door. I'm glad to see you're okay, Haku, Naruto said as he quietly opened the door. Thank you, Haku said as he entered the house. Inari, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found. Where's Inari? He's fine, Haku replied reassuringly. I asked Mizu and Guzu to keep an eye on him. The question on Naruto's mind was, who are Mizu and Guzu? Haku smiled confidently. They're two shinobi who have been with us since the Kirigakure coup. They're excellent at their jobs, so there's no need to be concerned. What exactly do they do? Naruto found himself questioning. Assassination, Haku calmly replied. You left a child in the hands of assassins. Naruto almost yelled, why would you do such a thing? What if they murder him? Everything would be destroyed. I considered it, Haku said, but they were too afraid of me to even consider it. There's no need to be concerned. Everything has been taken care of by me. Naruto calmed down slightly but remained tense. He sank into his seat at the small dining table and sipped his juice, doing everything he could to alleviate his discomfort. He finished his glass in one sitting and decided to get more from the fridge. As he stood up, Haku took the seat opposite Naruto's. Do you want something to drink? He asked, pulling out a bottle of peach juice. No, thank you, Haku said, shaking his head. Naruto topped off his glass with juice and took a sip before returning it. I met with each of the men and interrogated them. At any of the locations, there has been no movement. Naruto was not surprised, but he was slightly disappointed. It made sense for Waraji to abandon the old locations if Zuri was captured, so an immediate rescue attempt was ruled out. The situation became slightly more complicated. He mentally added it to his to-do list and scheduled it for later. Was there anything else they said? Naruto inquired. Haku gave a nod. Yes. They're getting complaints from their customers about a lack of security. Protection. They run a protection racket. Naruto asked again. Haku quietly nodded. When Gato was still alive, he divided his men into groups in charge of various operations. This gang was in charge of supervising the protection rackets. After Gato's death, they only control the businesses in and around the docks, as well as 2 gambling rings. Haku took a breather to clear his throat before continuing. A rival group is taking over what is left of their territory. They've raided some of the businesses and persuaded the rest to pay their dues to their gang. Those who refused or were raided were given a day to decide their allegiances. They're yelling at the guys and demanding vengeance. Naruto shook his head in disbelief. He needed to postpone his search for the bridge builder's daughter in order to deal with the complaints. If he didn't, he risked losing the support of his subordinates. Naruto sighed as he sipped his juice at the table. When did gang management become so complicated? He wondered aloud to no one in particular. As Naruto tried to clear his mind, Haku remained silent. He could simply let the boys loose on this new gang. But what could this gang do? Were they a larger group or just a bunch of troublemakers? Punks could easily be integrated into his gang. But what if they were well organized? A well-organized group would be more than capable of defending themselves while also attacking. Naruto sighed. Why didn't he pay more attention to the Ninja Academy's strategy lectures? He racked his brain, attempting to recall Iruka's lessons, before asking, did they say anything specific about this gang? Not much, Haku replied, but they may have a ninja on their payroll. IG believes that if they could afford a ninja, it would most likely be a genin. The gang is made up of 12 minors, 5 adults, and Gato's former security chief. IG. Naruto did it again. Yes, Haku admitted quietly, he is the most sensible of all of them, if not the bravest. Naruto reflected last night and concluded that it was all too true. IG only spoke because Naruto was about to unleash Haku on them. He couldn't blame them, because Haku was so similar to Zabuza and yet so different. And his death was far too depressing to bring up around Haku. Although Haku appeared to be unconcerned about Zabuza's death, Naruto could see sorrow, grief, and pain in the boy's eyes. He masked it well, but Naruto was not fooled. As a result, the blonde felt sorry for Haku. It seemed that the people he cared about the most were always the ones who died. Naruto recalled Haku's childhood stories. He discovered the ability to manipulate water at a young age as part of a special Kekkei Genkai he inherited from his mother. Unfortunately, it occurred during a period when ninja were in hiding, fearful of the masses. When Haku's father discovered this special ability, he did something that no man should ever do. Haku's father murdered his wife and then went after his son. Haku still had no control over his own powers at the time, and in fear, he killed his father. Haku quickly became an outcast, afraid to approach anyone and feared by all. It wasn't until his fateful encounter with Zabuza that Haku found new meaning in his life. But now that Zabuza was gone, Haku had no reason to live. Naruto was well aware of the expression Haku wore. It was only worn by those who had no purpose or understanding of affection. Naruto assumed Haku's closest encounter with either was with Zabuza. Naruto and Haku shared more similarities than he cared to admit. The door opened with a creak. When Haku and Naruto turned around, they saw Keitaro walking into the house with a plastic bag. He mumbled quietly to himself and placed the bag in the kitchen with a quiet, "Hello Naruto." "Haku, how are things going, Keitaro?" Naruto inquired casually, a cheerful expression on his young face. "I'm going to lie down for a bit," he replied quietly before opening the trap door to go downstairs. "Please help yourself to the fried squid." Keitaro walked downstairs and shut the door behind him. "He appears tired," Haku said, tilting his head. "Probably," Naruto replied quietly. "He's been attempting to rule the entire country since Gato died. But he's only one man. He can't do it on his own." The silence returned to the room. Naruto was struck by a brilliant idea at that moment, one that no one could have predicted from him. Naruto was clearly improving as a leader, or he would not have come up with this brilliant idea. "How many people were hiding with you and Zabuza?" Naruto asked slowly. "Approximately 10, including Mizu and Guzu. Why do you inquire?" Haku responded as if his words were old news. "How many do you think there are now?" Naruto inquired. "Around 4. After Zabuza died, most of them returned to Kirigekure hoping for forgiveness from the cage." Haku explained, "But they're probably all dead now because they were all S-rank criminals, also known as kill on sight." Naruto shook his head in disbelief at the obvious stupidity. Kill on sight status now justified a peaceful surrender and forgiveness. At least 4 of them were rational. Naruto devised his strategy gradually. The main priority remained finding Inari's mother, but the uncontrollable gang war stood in his way. Naruto gave Haku his orders in hushed tones: "Tell the boys to take a break later tonight. Remind them to assist the remaining customers by cleaning the stores, repairing damages, or anything else. When that's done, I'd like you to get 2 of your ninja and Ig." "Ig?" Haku inquired. Naruto bowed. "Yes, I'd like you to bring Ig with you. Track down this troublemaking gang and persuade them to join us. I want you to be respectful, don't lower yourself to the level of those fools." "As you wish, Naruto," Haku replied. "But what if they refuse?" "Explain to them the advantages of joining," Naruto said, unknowingly flashing his dark smile once more. Haku felt a shiver run down his spine. He realized what Naruto meant and jumped out of his chair. "Would you like some squid before you go?" Naruto asked as he approached the door. "No, but thank you for asking," Haku said, shaking his head. Haku walked out the door just as the last rays of sunlight faded. If his gang had any doubts that Naruto was not a capable leader, those doubts were dispelled in a matter of hours. The plan went off without a hitch. The following day, this rival gang formally apologized to the businesses they had harassed. As part of their apology, they paid each business 1,000 ryu as a goodwill investment. The general public did notice several new gang members, while others were not present. It was unsurprising that their office building was renovated several times. All of the gang's previous symbols were replaced with a fox silhouette. Every small business under the gang's protection experienced the same transformation. Keisan Ig, the gang's new leader, was introduced. At his ability to defeat one of the more violent Basuzoku, everyone assumed he was a dangerous lunatic. That's what the general public thought, much to Naruto's delight. The gang pledged total allegiance to Kitsune, adding 42 men to Naruto's gang of 5, bringing the total to 47. Of course, Naruto soon discovered that the gang had grown too large for him and Haku to control. Keisan Ig's ability was evaluated at this point. Ig proved to be a rational man as well as a tactical genius. Haku even admitted that Ig was the only reason they were all alive, despite the fact that the odds were 50-4. Naruto made him the unofficial Sharegashira and put him in charge of 20 men, including Ig's 4 buddies, to show his gratitude. Ig was also tasked with overseeing all of the gang's business ventures. Haku was given command of the remaining 27 grunts because of his strong friendship and loyalty to Naruto. This number, along with the 4 shinobi who were only loyal to Haku, made Haku the most powerful member of the group. Because of this, Haku was named the unofficial Wakagashira, or number 2 man. Naruto, as the mastermind behind the entire plot and the leader of the organization, was named Kyumicho, or chairman of the group. Naruto was able to maintain his gang's dominance through a combination of fear and respect. Naruto's leadership as Kitsune was recognized on that day. His gang established its power and capability on that day. The Kitsune Syndicate was founded on that day. Haku waited patiently on the roof of a bar, keeping a low profile. A slightly taller ninja in strange clothing stood by his side. A kirigakure forehead protector adorned his brow, with the addition of 2 metal horns clumsily fused onto the metal. A single gas mask covered the majority of his face, leaving only his eyes and ruffled hair visible. His outfit consisted of a forest camouflage shirt and pants, a tan vest, and a blue cloak. The man's most distinguishing feature is a large metal claw on his left hand. The man shifted uncomfortably, unable to calm himself. Haku sighed, instantly regretting his decision to listen to Guzo. Not that Haku disliked Guzo's brother, Mizu, but of the 2 Mist Demon brothers, the eldest was clearly the better choice. Guzo, on the other hand, had insisted Haku take Mizu instead because the younger brother would benefit the most from the mission. The mission called for expert stealth and maneuvering, which the younger brother lacked. Guzo had frequently remarked on Mizu's lack of skill in both. Mizu's attacks in a fight were so fast and clumsy that he frequently missed or barely scratched his target. His aim needed improvement as well, as his average was 4 out of 7 kunai. In terms of stealth, his disguises were frequently shoddy or overly obvious. In one case, Mizu chose to disguise himself as an elderly woman by wearing loose-fitting clothing. While this could have easily fooled an experienced shinobi, the gas mask and the massive metal claw protruding from the left sleeve were dead giveaways. His transformation jutsu also needed to be improved. It was not a matter of physical transformation. This was frequently done to meet the standard for a chunin, a perfect copy. However, these transformations frequently had telltale signs. The most common errors were a kunai pouch on the wrong leg or an unusually large left arm. As Mizu groaned loudly, Haku sighed and politely asked, "What's bothering you? We've been here for several hours. What are we specifically looking for?" Mizu whined childishly. "Patience," Haku said. "You'll see it when you see it." "And what is it?" Mizu inquired sarcastically. He landed on his back with a thud. "Just keep watching," Haku said, running his hand through his hair. Haku turned his gaze away from Mizu and toward the ruins of the inn that Gato had mercilessly destroyed not long ago. With the exception of the clerk, whom Keitaro had saved by running in, no one was hurt in the fire, but the inn was destroyed. The fire had destroyed most of the interior, leaving only the building's frame. The inn staff had boarded up most of the windows and doors, and officials had roped off the building. As Haku understood it, Keitaro had recently paid a small fortune as compensation and a temporary pension to the inn's manager and employees until the inn could be rebuilt. According to Ig, the inn was one of Waraji's suspected hideouts. Haku had formed 2-person teams to monitor the other sites and report back to Guzo at the end of each day. There had been no movement for a week. Mizu let out a gentle snore. Haku's head dropped at the noise because it reminded him of his own exhaustion. Even so, he couldn't afford to sleep at this hour, not with Inari's mother's life on the line. Haku found it strange that he went to such great lengths to save the mother of a complete stranger. He barely knew Inari, but something inside of him yearned to see her reunited with her. Haku was reminded of his own mother by thoughts of Inari's mother. Although his memories of her were distant and hazy, he remembered his mother's unrivaled beauty. Many people mistook him for a woman, so he must have inherited those good looks. His mother was perfect in his eyes. She was always by his side, for whatever reason, with the intention of instilling proper ideals in him. Despite the fact that her methods were dubious, Haku would realize all too late that everything she did was for their protection. Haku and his mother were the last surviving members of a ninja clan known for their Kekkei Genkai. Haku's mother did everything she could to protect him until she died. Haku removed his mask to wipe his misty eyes, which were blurring his vision. Haku was taken aback. He looked down at his kimono sleeve, which was wet with tears. He blinked and put on the mask again. He was sobbing. How is that possible? Haku had long assumed that all of his tears had dried up the day his parents died. Of course, Haku never really cared because Zabuza once taught him that emotion was a fatal flaw in shinobi, resulting in the deaths of many foolish ninja, particularly Kunoichi. Haku's spine tingled as he pondered the significance of the tear. Did this imply he was frail? Was it something else? Zabuza had reinforced the notion that emotion was merely a sign of weakness. But what if there was something more to it? A loud crash erupted from the ruins below, stopping him in his tracks. A loud crash jolted Haku out of his reverie and roused the sleeping Mizu. What occurred? Mizu muttered. Quiet, Haku said as he pushed him down onto his belly and placed his finger to his lips. They were drawn to a man crawling out of a hole in the ground. He quickly scanned the surrounding area before reaching into the hole and removing a young woman with dark blue hair dressed in a flowing pink blouse and long blue skirt. Despite the darkness, Haku could see bruises on her face and arms. Her arms and legs were bound with ropes. Haku also noticed how loose her clothes were, as if they had been hurriedly removed and sloppily thrown on. Haku shuddered as he remembered what they had done to the poor woman. The man purposefully threw the woman to the ground before reaching back into the hole to pull out another man. The man who came out next was half naked, wearing only pants and a topless robe that hung around his waist. His hair was styled in an unusual way, with a ponytail at the front and back of his head and a small bun of hair at the base of the back ponytail. If his features couldn't get any worse, they were. Scars adorned his half-naked body, and dark-colored tattoos were clumsily etched into his face, as if to conceal the scars. There was one exception. An eye patch that crisscrossed his face obscured a scar that ran along his left eye. Haku reached into his robes and pulled out a photograph given to him by Ig. A quick glance at the image, followed by a comparison, revealed all he needed to know. Waragi was the name of the man down below. If this was true, the woman was Inari's mother. That man who just came out, he is our target, Waragi, Haku said calmly to get the man's attention. The other is the daughter of the bridge builder. So do we go and rescue her? Mizu asked, nodding in agreement. No, we follow them and see where they go, Haku replied quietly, shaking his head. Wouldn't it be faster to just kill him now? Mizu cocked his head to the side. That is something we cannot afford. There could be more of them than we can see, Haku explained, so we should just watch and wait. Mizu moaned quietly about the lack of fighting. Haku silently agreed, wanting to rush in and save the woman but knowing he shouldn't. It would be better to track them down and see where they ended up. A frontal assault, as Zabuza had taught him, was doomed to fail. It was always better to stand back and let the enemy make the mistakes. Waragi reached down and took Inari's mother in his arms, walking down the street quietly with his goon in tow. Haku and Mizu followed quickly but quietly, staying in the shadows so as not to draw Waragi's attention but close enough so that Waragi didn't vanish. They stalked their prey with the grace of a cat stalking its prey. Haku and Mizu arrived at the docks after a long journey. Waragi and his companion were leaning against the dock walls in the streets below, quietly moving crates aside to reveal an opening in the wall. They slid through the gap and into the docks, sprinting into a nearby building with a sign hung over a large door that read Warehouse 27. A damaged sign beneath it read, Ga, U, or Ra, On. There were vague silhouettes of the letters to, Si, Po, Tai where there were blanks in the signs. Before turning to Mizu, Haku reread the sign, Stay here while I notify Na. Kitsune, the boss. How should I proceed? Mizu clenched his teeth. Haku shrugged and said calmly, Keep an eye on the structure. I'll notify your brother so he can entertain you. But Mizu attempted to object. Haku, on the other hand, had already bolted. Haku made several hand gestures, and a mass of water formed beside him, becoming an exact replica of Haku. The two Hakus raced off in opposite directions without saying anything. Naruto awoke early that morning, wishing he hadn't. The previous week had taught him the challenges of being a syndicate leader. Although the general public believed Ig was the gang's leader, Naruto bore full responsibility. This was the case with a store owner who was under the gang's protection. The store had been robbed by a local gang and was unable to pay its debt. Ig relayed the message to Naruto, who ordered the hoods to be disciplined. Ig obeyed and sent 2 men to confront the intruders. The troublemakers were not killed, but were severely beaten as a warning from the Kitsune Syndicate that troublemakers and hoodlums would not be tolerated. What should have ended there quickly got out of hand. Friends and relatives of the hoodlums approached another gang leader, pleading for vengeance. Needless to say, Naruto was enraged by this news. What family would seek vengeance on troublemakers and hoodlums? The boys had thrown away their futures to pursue a life of crime. What would vengeance bring them? Nothing. It brought back memories of Naruto's childhood in Konoha. When Naruto was younger, the kids would frequently bully him. They engaged in everything from name-calling to outright theft. Naruto frequently attempted to defend himself in these situations, which frequently devolved into a childish squabble complete with hair pulling, biting, and kicking. If any of these kids were hurt in the ordinary way, they ran crying to their mothers and complained about a bully. Mothers frequently went to their husbands, and retaliation was swift. These fathers knew it was inappropriate for adults to confront a child openly, so they made Naruto's life miserable in other ways. Prices in stores always seemed to rise whenever he went shopping for clothes, assuming the store was open at all. Naruto frequently returns home to find his apartment defaced with graffiti or ransacked. Others went so far as to ignore Naruto's presence entirely. It got to the point where Naruto almost gave up defending himself when kids teased him. Not this time, though. Naruto told Ig that the Kitsune would destroy anyone who stood in their way, and he issued an ultimatum: drop the vendetta or face annihilation. The Watari Syndicate retaliated by murdering 2 members of Ig's regime while they were eating ramen. Ig was enraged by the assassination, especially because those 2 were his friends, and retaliated by raiding the Watari's businesses. The Land of Waves War began with these 2 actions. It was a long, tedious process that demanded a lot of Naruto's attention. Every day, Haku would bring Ig paperwork detailing every move made by the Watari and every countermeasure retaliation Ig took. Naruto had been exhausted by the numerous papers and had spent the majority of last night reviewing everything Haku had given him. A quick glance at his watch revealed that Naruto had only slept for an hour. He heard the disturbance that awoke him as the room gradually faded into view, a loud knocking noise that echoed loudly throughout the basement. Naruto arose from his bed and climbed the stairs to the first floor, where Keitaro lay face down on a table with a bottle of sake in his hand. A mountain of papers lay on the table, stacks that could have easily reached the ceiling if piled together. The floor was littered with boxes containing papers, one of which was labeled, Gadu Corporation Filed Imports. Naruto blinked, pitying Keitaro, who was clearly stretched thin. Keitaro let out a loud snort, followed by a light mumble. The knocking noise came from the front door once more. I'm coming, Naruto said as he pushed open the door. Naruto would normally be more cautious with the front door, especially since he was supposed to be dead. But because the majority of the villagers assumed no one lived in this shack, no one came to the door unless it was Haku. To no one's surprise, Haku was patiently waiting on the other side. I apologize if I woke you up, Naruto. Naruto shook his head and let Haku in, closing the door quietly so as not to wake Keitaro. Naruto pressed his lips together and pointed from Keitaro to the open trapdoor. Haku nodded in agreement and tiptoed downstairs, Naruto close behind. Naruto yawned while covering his mouth. Keitaro, still fast asleep, mumbled quietly, why mar me. Naruto descended the stairs and closed the door to his room so Keitaro wouldn't hear them. He closed them in and faced Haku with a quick turn of the lock. What exactly is going on? Naruto mumbled, his mouth closed to conceal another tired yawn. It was too early in the morning for anything trivial, so whatever it was had to be important. Naruto didn't want to hear anything about the gang war, either. Haku removed his mask, revealing a genuine smile. It wasn't the blank, empty, calm smile Haku often wore to hide his emotions. It was a genuine, joyful smile. One that made Naruto extremely uneasy, particularly because the smile made Haku's already girlish appearance appear even more feminine. We tracked down Inari's mother and Wareji. They've been hiding beneath the inn and have recently relocated to Warehouse 27 at the docks. A smile appeared on Naruto's face for a brief moment. Finally, things started to improve. But it was still too early to rejoice. There would be no reason to rejoice until he knew Inari's mother was safe and reunited with her only son. He tried to don his serious face but couldn't mask his own happiness. Defeated, Naruto happily said, "That's great. So what do we do?" Haku asked with equal cheeriness. "Let's not get hasty for starters," Naruto said, killing the cheerful mood almost immediately. "We'll take this one step at a time." But, we know where she is," Haku protested, lifting his mask to reveal an aggravated face. "Why don't we go rescue her now?" Naruto was taken aback by Haku's sudden protest. It was unlike him, the gentle demeanor Haku often wore. Naruto found it a frightening prospect, but calmly said, "We cannot afford any mistakes. If we rush in, it could be disastrous." Haku blinked, his face slowly relaxing. I'm sorry. I was out of line." "It's alright," Naruto answered forgivingly. "Send a message to IG to meet us at that ramen bar near the center of the town around noon. And tell him to come alone." "Of course," Haku answered. "Should I bring Inari too?" Naruto nodded. "I don't see why not. The boy's mother is involved. I'm sure he would like to be at a meeting to plan her rescue." "Very well." Haku bowed as low as he could before dissolving into water. Naruto took several steps back to avoid the liquid as it crashed onto the floor, forming a puddle on the mossy wooden floor. Naruto groaned, "Great, a Mizu Bunshin." He reached into his dresser and dropped a towel onto the floor. After wiping the floor, Naruto discarded the towel into a basket set aside for his laundry and collapsed on his bed. Naruto collapsed onto his bed and tried to sleep but was unable to do so. And how could he sleep, knowing how close he was to rescuing Inari's mother? He wanted to go and rescue her himself but knew better. He was still technically dead and he knew little about Waraji's own abilities. It would a fool's errand to rush into danger so stupidly. As he formalized a way to rescue Inari's mother, he slowly drifted to sleep. Later that day, Naruto sat quietly in the ramen bar clad in his blue cloak and rice hat. Tied to his waist was his crimson katana, Kitsune, which Naruto held firmly in his left hand. The action seemed more subconscious than intended. It was, after all, nothing more than a katana. There were many more like it in the world, but Naruto found himself exceptionally attached to this one for some reason. A strange complex which Naruto feared he would never overcome. The bar was full of the aroma of ramen from beef to pork. The cook was behind the counter fiddling away with vegetables and meat, along with a pot of boiling water. He turned to Naruto after tossing all the ingredients into the water and calmly asked, "What'll it be?" "Shrimp ramen," Naruto answered. The man nodded and went back to the pot. Minutes later, the man set the bowl down on the counter. He didn't know what it was about ramen that relaxed him so much. Maybe it was the alluring scent or the wonderful variety of flavors. Either way, Naruto made the contents of the bowl vanish almost immediately. "Wow, you sure eat fast, don't ya?" the cook said jokingly. "Do you want seconds?" "Please," Naruto said. The cook laughed and refilled the bowl. "That's a new recipe I've been working on for a while now. You don't mind being the first person to try it, do you?" Naruto shook his head and laughed cheerily. "Itadakimasu. Hello," Haku said as he entered the bar. Beside him was Inari, clad in a white shirt and black shorts. As Inari took his seat beside Naruto, the blonde could feel the fear emanating off of the boy. Naruto shrugged it off. Inari was shaking furiously, a glazed look in his red eyes. Naruto patted the boy on the back and whispered, "Why don't you have some ramen?" Inari looked at him fearfully, as if the boy expected Naruto to do something terrible. Naruto chuckled. "If I was going to hurt you, wouldn't I have done it by now?" Inari gulped loudly and quietly mumbled, "I'll have the pork ramen." Naruto smiled and turned his attention to Haku. What Naruto saw almost made him drop his chopsticks. Instead of wearing his usual mask, Haku was wearing a fox mask. Naruto blinked and rubbed his eyes to be sure he wasn't hallucinating. Once he was sure it wasn't a product of his mind, he asked, "Are you wearing a fox mask? Do you like it?" Haku inquired. Naruto's eyebrow shot up. "Yes," he said, sounding more like a question than an answer. Haku lifted the mask and smiled. "I thought it fit the present situation." Naruto tilted his head to the side. He appreciated Haku's intentions but found it excessively creepy. Still, as Naruto recalled, Haku was the one who adorned himself in woman's clothing, so changing his mask shouldn't have been at all disturbing. Silence consumed the three as they quietly ate their ramen until IG joined them several minutes later. As opposed to their last meeting, IG had fixed his suit so it would appear more formal instead of messy. Naruto looked IG over and noticed a black fox tattooed to his neck. Naruto blinked and found it all too annoying. First a fox mask and a fox tattoo. Granted, the group was called the Kitsune Syndicate. Was it really necessary? Was some divine, all-powerful being trying to send him a message with all the foxes? Naruto mulled it over for a second. Foxes were famous for being mischievous creatures, transforming into women at will to dispense suffering on any male who chose to play the fool. They were, by design, intelligent beings known all too well for their cunning. They were also known as servants to a divine kami who dispensed justice as he saw fit. Other times, they were benefactors for the needy, generously giving money to the less fortunate. As benevolent as T's ideas were, Naruto had to shake his head. After all, it could be little more than the delusions of an idle mind. "How are you, Boss Kitsune?" IG said upon entering. The cook stiffened at the sound of those words and turned to face Naruto. Boss Kitsune." A small grin drew itself on his face. "This is a joke, right?" IG gave the man a cold stare, which was answer enough. Naruto saw the look of fear in his eyes, surprised to see the name inspired fear. The cook quickly went back to his cooking. "May I ask a favor?" Naruto said carefully. The cook looked from Naruto to Haku to IG before saying, "Sure. I would like to use the back room, if that's okay with you," Naruto asked, trying to don a calm, collected tone. The cook nodded, "Sure." The cook reached underneath the counter and retrieved a set of keys, while Haku slurped his ramen rather loudly. After sifting through the keys for several minutes, He went to the back of the bar and unlocked a door. He opened it, leaving the door ajar so Haku and Inari would have time to finish their ramen. Once they finished, IG left several 100 Ryu bills on the counter and they filed into the back room. Naruto went in last, politely saying, "Thank you." The back room was larger than the safe house and slightly cleaner. There were several crates stacked around the walls. A round table sat quietly in the center with a small lamp illuminating the room from the ceiling. Naruto took a seat first, followed by Haku, IG and then Inari. The room became rather quiet, until IG broke the silence. "Boss Kitsune, I was hoping we could address some complaints our clientele are giving us regarding the Watari." Naruto shook his head. "Later. We have more pressing issues to address." "But, IG," Naruto commanded, "we'll address the Watari once we're in a more private atmosphere." "Fine," IG grumbled, leaning back in his chair. Naruto turned to Haku and began, "So, are there any new developments?" "No new movements," Haku answered, "but we estimate roughly 10 or 12 guards. Waraji is holed up in a complex below Warehouse 27. Inari looked at Haku and heard Waraji's name. A hopeful glint appeared in his eye, followed by a small grin. Gotta use those to stockpile a lot of supplies so he could monopolize the trafficking industry by raising the prices. There's also a private bunker there he used as a secret safe house. Not even the Kurohi know it's there, IG explained. "Have you been in it?" Naruto inquired. "Yeah," IG answered. Naruto kept that in the back of his mind. IG had knowledge of the complex, so he would be an important asset to the rescue. Naruto looked at Haku, who's watching the warehouse right now. "The Demon Brothers," Haku said. Quietly, Inari asked, "Do you know where my mother is?" Naruto looked at Inari. No one had mentioned Inari's mother yet, but he had already jumped to that conclusion. He was either very bright or very lucky, a very important trait to have. Naruto nodded and patted Inari on the head. "You're smarter than you look. You know where my mother is." "Where is she?" Inari demanded, getting up of his chair. Naruto put his hand on Haku's shoulder and forced him back into his chair. The ease with which Naruto did this told him either Inari was scared of him or Inari didn't have the physical strength to combat Naruto. The latter was more likely and, if true, proved there was more to Inari than met the eye. As coolly as he could, Naruto said, "Sit." Naruto must have had some domineering presence over them, since the room fell quiet when he ordered Inari to sit, as if everyone present expected Inari to die at that moment. It wasn't that Naruto was mad at Inari. In fact, Naruto had nothing but respect for the boy. Anyone who had the ability to remain unfazed by being a hostage was easily worthy of respect. Once Inari had settled down, Naruto turned to IG and Haku. To Naruto's surprise, Haku had risen out of his chair. In his hand was a kunai which he held dangerously. Haku concealed the kunai and sank back into his chair slowly, letting out a rel's sigh. "So, IG," Naruto continued, "what would be the best course of action?" IG ran a hand through his hair. "Well, the complex is very small with sharp corners. Too many people could block it up real quick. Your best bet would be to get 4 guys together. One of them needs to be intimately familiar with the facility." "The 4 of us," Naruto said. He was met with confused looks accompanied with the same, "What?" Naruto sighed and explained, "IG is the only one intimately familiar with the complex. Haku is the most skilled in combat. And I'm sure Inari here really wants to see his mother." Silence filled the room, a silence born out of silent agreement. No words needed to be uttered as they each had a mutual understanding. Naruto rose from his chair and said, with a commanding air, "We make our move tonight." A small dim light was all that lit up the guardhouse resting by the gate into the docks. Sitting inside were 2 guards patiently awaiting the end of their shift. The oldest of the 2 guards sat quietly by the window, killing time by filling out order forms, filing memos, and making copies of the sign and list. The other occupied himself with a copy of an orange book entitled Ika Ika Paradise. The guard let out a small chuckle every 5 or so minutes as he flipped through the pages of his book, prompting the other guard to ask, "Is it any good?" That book. When you're older, rookie," the guard said jokingly. "Rookie?" The older guard scowled. "I'm older than you by 2 years and have been working here longer." "I wasn't talking about work," the younger guard said. The older one rolled his eyes, understanding his companion's reference, and returned to his paperwork. Just as he picked up his pen, he noticed a feather slowly fall onto his desk. He picked up the feather, wondering where it had fallen from. He glanced to the ceiling of the guard house, searching for some crack or opening which the feather could have slipped through. He then inspected the windows, finding none of them open. He let out a small yawn and turned to his companion only to find the young guard fast asleep. He rolled his eyes and let out another yawn. Another feather appeared before his eyes, followed slowly by another. "I need a drink," he concluded, dismissing the phenomenon as nothing more than a delusion-caused fatigue, and reached for a bottle of sake. He let out another yawn and brought the bottle to his lips. After several gulps of the amber liquid, he lowered the bottle and went back to his paperwork, doing his best to ignore the heavy feeling in his eyes. Several minutes went by in silence, accompanied only by his partner's hushed snoring. Eventually, the guard decided to join his partner and took another swig of the amber liquid. It wasn't as if anything would happen if he fell asleep. This was the graveyard shift, where nothing of importance ever happened. Besides, a little nap couldn't hurt. He laid his head on his desk and closed his eyes, falling asleep in a matter of seconds. Naruto nodded approvingly of Haku's handiwork. A simple genjutsu was all Haku needed to put the two guards to rest. Still, the next part would be the most disgusting part of the entire rescue, but was unavoidable. Naruto walked up to the door and turned the doorknob only to find it was locked. He sighed and drew Kitsune out of its scabbard, using it to smash the window of the guardhouse. He climbed inside and glanced around. One guard had fallen asleep with a copy of Ika Ika Paradise in hand, while the other rested his head on a desk holding a bottle of sake. Naruto eyed the two guards before tiptoeing to the oldest of the two and quickly undoing the buttons on the uniform and removing it. Naruto then undid the button and fly to the pants, sliding it off the man's legs. As the pants came off, a putrid smell filled Naruto's nostrils that caused him to cough. After the uniform was off the guard, he reached for the shoes and quickly undid the laces. Once that job was accomplished, he placed the shoes with the other clothes and retrieved a pair of handcuffs from within the guard's belt. With the guard stripped of everything except his underwear, Naruto moved the sleeping guards onto the floor so no one passing by would see them. Stepping back to admire his work, he checked through the clothes to be sure he had everything before slapping himself in the head. He started looking through all the drawers and papers for a set of keys needed to unlock the warehouse doors. After searching produced no results, Naruto let out a soft groan. "It's not here." "Naruto, what's going on?" Haku's voice said from a small radio in Naruto's pocket. "You're taking too much time." Naruto retrieved the radio from his pocket and responded, "I can't find where the guards put the keys." "I see," he answered. "Do you want me to move ahead with step 2? "Go ahead." Naruto bit his lip after checking the drawers again, failed to produce a key. "But don't go ahead with step 3 until I give the order." "I understand," Haku answered. The radio went silent with static. Naruto combed through the entire guardhouse and collapsed onto the chair after giving up. "Where is it?" Naruto's eyes sank down to the floor where he saw the two sleeping guards, one half naked. The blonde's eyes wandered to the dressed guard and saw a key hanging from a chain connected to his belt. Naruto let out a snicker at his stupidity and ripped the key ring off. With his job done, Naruto leapt out of the building and walked across the street into a dark alley where two people awaited his return. Once in the alley, Naruto's eyes adjusted to the darkness so he could make out Inari and Iji's figures. Naruto passed the uniform to Iji and turned to Inari. "When we get inside, stay out of sight until we get you. Understand?" Inari nodded. "Good. And whatever happens," Naruto continued, "don't get killed." These words struck a chord in Inari's young mind. True enough, the youth had witnessed the death of his de facto father. Even truer, Inari had almost died because of some local bullies who tried to take his dog for their own. These kids were troublemakers whose families' combined wealth could not afford a dog, let alone sustain 3 families. These kids were part of a local gang of ruffians and hooligans, so their behavior was more or less expected, if unacceptable. Still, even though they put Inari's life in danger, they made no effort to remedy the situation by saving him, instead choosing to chase after Inari's pet dog. If that was the case, wouldn't Naruto and Iji do the same thing? How far would they go to keep Inari alive? Could Inari even trust them? True, they were making every effort to save his mother, but was it a sincere effort or was it for their own twisted gains? Naruto performed the necessary hand signs to perform a transformation. He transformed into an older version of himself. This new appearance was similar to Naruto in every likeness with the exception of the lack of whisker marks on his cheek and an increase in the length of his already messy hair. Naturally, Naruto put himself in a guard's uniform to deter any unwanted attention. Curiously though, Naruto's transformation did not hide the scar Sasuke had given not too long ago. What made it stranger was Naruto had wanted the scar to disappear as a part of his transformation. Was it subconscious? Did Naruto actually want the scar to show? He couldn't think of a reason in which he would have wanted it to stay. Maybe he just did the jutsu wrong since he had difficulty with the jutsu in the past. A grunt from the side told Naruto that Iji was having difficulty with the belt to his attire. Naruto held back a snicker, but found his attitude changed when Inari asked, "How did you do that?" Are you some kind of ninja? Naruto shot Inari a dirty look. Perhaps if Inari had said that under different circumstances, Naruto would have reacted in a more cheerful manner. But any chance for those circumstances to happen disappeared. Maybe it was fate, the will of an all-powerful being, or a divine fluke, a miraculous prank. In either case, Naruto didn't care. There was little hope for Naruto to ascend the ranks as a ninja in any village. After all, wasn't he a deceased S-rank criminal? Naruto pushed the thought aside and reached into his pocket for the handcuffs he acquired earlier. When Inari saw the item in Naruto's hand, his eyes widened in surprise. In a hurried tone, Inari sputtered out, "Is this a joke?" Naruto shook his head and fastened it on Inari's wrists. He tightened the cuffs so Inari couldn't slide his hand out of it, even though it was obvious that his hands were too small for it in the first place. But it wasn't as if handcuffs were made specifically for kids, so this would have to do. Naruto, Ig and Inari quietly walked across the street and past the entrance into the docks. At this particular time of night, all the lights were on so the workers could see as clear as day. Ig led the way through the many crates, barrels, and machinery with Naruto and Inari in tow. The lighting cast creeping shadows along the wall that appeared to stalk their little group. They had only gone past the first garage when a patrolman passing by saw their little group. "Let me guess, the kid tried to break in." "Yeah," Naruto answered. He felt Inari give him a cold and confused stare. The guard nodded and walked away, whistling to himself quietly. The further in they went, the more workers they found busy with various tasks, from moving logging shipment records to transferring supplies on and off ships. A foghorn went off somewhere in the distance, followed by shouts from some workers concerning a freighter arriving earlier than scheduled and needing to dock due to low fuel. Some workers were on their break, trying to stay awake with coffee and alcohol. One of the workers brought up the curious topic of the extortion and softly complained, "I had to give my sister 1,000 ryu the other day so she could pay her store as tribute to those god-forsaken Yakuza." One of his companions gritted his teeth and said, "You're not supposed to say that word. You'll jinx us all." "Oh please," was the retort, "that's just a silly superstition. Besides, those flunkies jacked up the prices so they could fund their stupid war." "Wait, there's a war going on?" another asked. "You didn't know? Remember those two guys who were stabbed to death about a week ago at that diner? You know, the two who were killed before they even got their drinks." "Yeah, I heard about that. Those two were part of that Kitsune clan. As you can imagine, they were the friends of the Oyabun, and boy was he pissed. That's why half of the businesses on the northern part of the village were closed. They say he's got the feudal lord in his pocket." Naruto rolled his eyes and exchanged a mocking glance with Ig. They both snickered quietly as they walked away from the workers. "Now you're just making stuff up." "No, it's true. I also heard hee-haw." The conversation came to an end when a foreman scolded them for discussing the topic at work, accompanied with a threat to fire them. Upon hearing these magic words, the workers pleaded for the foreman's forgiveness. Naruto wasn't able to hear the foreman's answer since their group turned a corner into a dark alley. The alley led straight to a small door marked Warehouse 27, Security Entrance. Naruto passed the key ring to Ig, who immediately opened the door to allow Naruto and Inari entrance. Once they were all inside, Ig gave the keys back to Naruto, who released the transformation jutsu. "Inari," Naruto called quietly, flipping through each of the keys, "come here." Inari stepped forward, a troubled look on his face. "Why yes." "Here," Naruto said. He started using keys at random until finally he removed the handcuffs on Inari's wrists. "There we go." Naruto pocketed the handcuffs and decided to take in his surroundings. The inside was dark, with lamps overhead in the rafter dimly lighting the expanse of the warehouse. Mountains of crates and barrels were piled high into the air, vaguely resembling a mountain. Many of the boxes contained damaged labels, yet the ones that were untouched read, "GATOU Corporation." They had just gone a few paces into the warehouse when Haku descended before them. He landed with all the grace of a cat falling from a great height. He landed softly, which was quite the feat considering he still had Zabuza's large sword strapped to his back. Even Zabuza, the more accomplished ninja between the two, was not so nimble. Still, they could not compare to the rest of the surprises Haku had in store. A thick red liquid was splashed along Haku's sword, dripping a puddle onto the ground. Slung over Haku's shoulder was a limp body, an unconscious man, adorned in black slacks and a white business shirt. Over this, he wore a blue leisure coat with what appeared to be a handkerchief sticking out of the breast pocket. As Haku drew closer, Naruto felt Inari latch himself onto his pants. Inari's grip tightened on his orange pants as Haku dropped the body onto the floor. "Who's that?" Naruto asked as Haku dropped the body onto the floor. "Kyosuke, a shade in the Watari," Haku answered. The new development was surprising. Why would the Watari be here of all places? The most obvious choice was a partnership between Waraji's gang and the Watari. Naruto didn't want to believe it though, hoping it was nothing more than a coincidence. That couldn't be the case though, since Waraji had nothing to offer the Watari except for Naruto groaned. Ig, however, didn't groan. Instead, he grabbed Haku by the shoulders and pinned him to the wall. Naruto jerked back, surprised by Ig's sudden outburst. With a lethal tone, Ig growled, "This better be a joke." Haku shook his head, calmly saying, "I wish it were." In all, there were 9 of them. When this man realized his comrades had fallen, he tried to escape through the fire exit. I learned his name and the name of his employer, but he fainted before he could say anything. Those sons of Ig growled dangerously, raising his fist. Naruto quickly realized what was about to happen and looked at Haku. For some strange reason, Haku appeared to be making no effort to stop Ig. Ig's fist came crashing down and Naruto, fearful of the outcome, shouted, "Ig." Ig's fist stopped mere inches from Haku's mask. It was so close that the hairs of Ig's knuckles were grazing the tip of Haku's mask. He released Haku and took several steps back. Naruto walked over to Ig and said, "What do you think you're doing? I know you're mad at the Watari, but now is not the time for fighting, especially if it's your comrade." These words surprised even Naruto, who had taken a more paternal tone on Ig. If anything, it sounded like a parent scolding a child. Even worse, it was the child scolding the adult. The situation seemed particularly odd to Naruto since he was often scolded in Konoha for the many pranks he pulled from defacing the Hokage stone faces to rigging booby traps for his professor. Although from the other side of the scolding, Naruto could see why it happened every time he did something wrong. It was an adrenaline rush to have that sense of superiority over another human being. Still, Naruto couldn't allow himself to get excited. As quietly and as calmly as he could, he said, "Apologize to Haku." "I apologize, Haku," Ig said, looking away from the group. "The entrance into the underground bunker is this way." Ig led the way with the rest of the group following behind distantly, as if he had some lethal disease. After they reached the center of the warehouse, Ig kneeled down and pulled on a small ring in the floor. With a great heave, he pulled open a door that revealed a dimly lit, steel staircase. Ig went in first, placing his hand against a wall that was illuminated only by candles. Naruto went in second, with Inari in third while Haku stayed in the rear. At the bottom of the stairs was a well-lit hallway made entirely out of stone. The walls were covered in a gray moss that clearly thrived in the dank conditions underground. It branched off into 2 different directions, perpendicular to the stairwell, about 15 feet down. Strange, garbled noises that vaguely resembled laughter and screaming echoed around them from all directions. Ig motioned for everyone to follow him and quietly whispered. These hallways were designed to echo loudly so that intruders could be easily detected. "If we want to maintain stealth, we're going to need to be quiet, all right?" They all nodded in silent agreement. "Okay," Ig whispered. He took the lead again and tiptoed down the hall. Curiously, even though Ig made it sound as if security would be tighter, Naruto couldn't help but notice how strangely vacant the hallways were. They had gone about 30 meters without encountering so much as a single guard. It was as if the entire bunker had been completely abandoned. But the further they went, the laughter and screaming became louder and clearer. Words were easy to pick up, like "please," "no," "stop," etc. The tone also became more decipherable, one of them having feminine qualities. They turned what Ig said was the last corner before they reached Gadu's makeshift office, only to find a sight so shocking that Naruto was forced to cover Inari's eyes with his hands. Blood covered the next 10 meters of hallway, staining the walls and ceiling a dark red. The blood pooled on the floor, around the bodies of what could have been between 5 and 8 men. An exact number could not be placed since the limbs had been removed from the torso, and the heads destroyed. The door at the end of the hallway had the corpse of a man pinned to it by a ninjato through his chest. Blood ran out of his mouth like water from a fountain. It was sickening. Whoever these men were, they had been guarding that door. Whoever killed them was definitely in the room and was not one to be taken lightly. The voices were louder than ever before now and easily understood. "No, please don't. I'll give you whatever you want," pleaded the first voice. "Shut up. A dog like you doesn't deserve to live." The second barked. A loud crashing noise was heard from beyond door. "Please, take the woman. You can have her. She's useless to me. Just take her and let me live. I don't want to die," the first said, more pleadingly. "Silence. You'll speak when spoken to," the second voice said threateningly. "Don't worry, my sweet. You shall soon be all mine." "I'd rather die," said a feminine voice. "Mother," Inari cried upon hearing the voice. Before anyone could do anything, Inari tore past Naruto and raced straight towards the door. Naruto was shocked to see Inari didn't notice the carnage that was the mutilated bodies or the corpse hanging from the door. In fact, Inari seemed too fixated on his mother to notice. Still, Naruto needed to stop the boy. Inari, wait. Naruto said, 1 second too late. Inari had already thrown the door open and ran inside. Inari, wait. Naruto said, 1 second too late. Inari had already thrown the door open and ran inside. As the door closed behind Inari, a blood-curdling scream echoed from inside. That idiot. Naruto growled. He explicitly ordered Inari not to get himself killed, and the kid still ran in. Still, nothing could help it now. Naruto pushed his way past Ig and charged into the room with Kitsune in his hand. Inside, Naruto found a dumbstruck Inari on his knees with his mouth gaping wide open with fearful eyes. Holding him close was a young woman with long, dark hair that fell to her back. Her clothes, consisting of a pink blouse and a blue skirt, were torn and stained brown and red with her blood. The blouse, especially, seemed to have been stretched and pulled unnecessarily as if someone had consistently removed and replaced it. She was covered in cuts, bruises, and dirt. Her tearful eyes were on Inari, whom she was holding comfortingly. You're all right. Thank heaven, you're all right. They said you were dead. Oh, thank goodness. Inari returned the embrace and quietly sobbed. Mother. Naruto couldn't help but smile for them, the reunited mother and son. There was obvious affection in their relationship, as Inari and his mother held each other in this embrace for some time. Unfortunately, a horrified scream killed the moment and Naruto's attention away from the two. He looked to the source of the scream to see Ig and Haku standing in front of him. In the back of the room, behind a wooden desk covered in papers and trays, stood a pale-skinned man with dark greased-back hair. A thick goatee grew around his open mouth, which revealed several golden teeth, if not rotting teeth. He was adorned in brown khakis and a white business shirt covered in an open gray vest. In his hand he held an uchigatana which was halfway through the chest of Waraji, or so it seemed. The blade missed Waraji altogether, instead going between his arm and torso so that it was just below his armpit. What was truly troubling was the fact that Waraji appeared to have fainted standing up. As far as Naruto could tell, the only thing supporting his weight was the man's blade. The man scratched his head and said, well, this was certainly unexpected. He passed out in fear. His eyes slid down Waraji's frame and made quite the mess. Now that the man mentioned it, Naruto was able to detect some hint of a foul smell circulating in the air. He quickly covered his nose and thought, what kind of bandit does that? With some effort, the man lowered his weapon so that Waraji slowly slid to the floor. He cast a side glance at Naruto, Haku, and Ig before shrugging. So, who are you? We were going to ask you the same question, Naruto answered, while Inari and his mother retreated into a corner. He stepped forward so that he stood between Inari and his mother and the strange man. Naruto then raised Kitsune in the air, pointing it directly at the man. He let out a chilling laugh and said, oh, I get it, you're playing the hero. A small squeak escaped Inari's mouth. Naruto looked back at the two, who were watching the scene before them intently, and decided to hold his ground. He could not allow the man near this too, especially after their so recent reunion. Look, I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want the bridge builder's kin, okay? The man said with a matter-of-fact tone. A small squeak escaped Inari's mother. The man tried to step towards the reunited family, but stopped in his tracks when Naruto held Kitsune's blade to the man's throat. Haku also had Zabuza's sword drawn while Ig was still pulling his katana out of its scabbard. Granted, he was behind Naruto. The man let out a snort and pushed Naruto's blade aside with his finger. Naruto held his ground and pointed Kitsune back at the man, exactly as Hashi-sensei had instructed him to hold it. The man scoffed, look, I don't know what you want. Whatever it is, we can reason it out after my job here is done. No, you're not getting your hands on either of them, Naruto warned. The man laughed and pulled his katana out of Waraji's corpse. The man retrieved a stone from his pocket and ran it along the edge of the blade, creating an ear-splitting scratching noise. The noise of stones scraping on metal made everyone in the room with the exception of Haku and the sword's wielder cringe. With a carefree tone, the man said, you'll have to forgive me. That filth behind me dulled my uchigatana. So, may I ask what the cause of this disagreement is? We will not allow harm to come to the bridge builder's family, Haku said dangerously. Naruto shot him a surprised look. He had never heard Haku use that tone before. He recalled Haku once saying he only ever killed when Zabuza demanded it or if it was absolutely necessary to protect Zabuza. Neither was the case, so what was his motive? Was the man a past acquaintance? Not likely. Haku spent his entire life with Zabuza. According to Haku, everyone who openly opposed them had always fallen to Zabuza's blade, with the exception of the Mizukage. If this was true, then this man would clearly have been eliminated by Zabuza. What other reason was there? To protect someone. Himself maybe. Not likely. The man presented little threat to Naruto at the moment, so there was no reason for Haku to get aggressive. Unless Haku was defending Inari and his mother. But why Haku do such a thing for them? What had they done? Haku hardly knew either Inari or his mother, so there was no chance for a strong personal relationship. But was it because of Inari's mother? Did Haku see a younger version of himself in Inari, young and helpless? Haku's mother did give her life for her son. But was Haku trying to avenge his mother? Was the guilt of his mother's sacrifice the cause? Or was it the fear that Inari would go through the same despair if she died? None of these would have seemed possible in the mind of someone who didn't know Haku, but Naruto did. Sure, Haku had always adopted a calm demeanor, but Naruto was more than able to see through the mask. Was the mask finally cracking? Was Haku letting out all of his rage and sorrow? The thought frightened Naruto. Several years of repressed rage could only add up. In Haku's case, that was a lot. The man let out a laugh. I see. Then we have a common goal. So you want to protect the bridge builder's family as well? Naruto repeated stupidly. The man shook his head. My job is simply to bring them to my employer. The Watari, Ig stated. Naruto cast a side glance to see Ig grinding his teeth. Naruto raised his hand and said, Ig, calm yourself. Ig took a step back and bowed. Forgive me. Naruto shook his head and realized the man was chuckling. More to the point, the man was pointing at Naruto and letting out quiet chuckles. At that moment, Naruto wanted to hit the man but decided against it. Keitaro told him, the way we do business is not the kind where your emotions can be worn on your sleeve. He calmed himself with thoughts of ramen, the alluring scent and its wondrous flavor filling his mouth. Now that he was relaxed, he said, what's so funny? A kid is giving orders to an adult, he answered. And the Watari aren't my employers. My employers make the Watari look like school children. And they are? Haku inquired. The highest bidder, he answered. The man tried to proceed forward to claim the mother and child but stopped when Haku dropped Zabuza's large sword in the way. Haku calmly said, please, mind your distance. I see we are at a misunderstanding, the man said. His hand slowly rotated the Uchigatana in his hands so that he held it backwards. I won't ask you again, stand aside. Haku's hand slowly reached for his kunai bag, but Naruto stepped in between them. He replaced Kitsune and sheath and calmly said, perhaps we can reason this out. How much are your employers paying you? We can double it. Double it? You can double 5 million Ryu, he said. Naruto's face paled. 5 million Ryu. Naruto had seen the financial reports Ig sent him. Granted, he needed Haku and Keitaro to explain what income tax, sales tax, checking accounts and the like were. 5 million was more than the syndicate made in a month. How were they going to double it? How double it in monthly installments? Naruto offered pleadingly. The man let out a laugh at his words and answered, nice try kid, but 5 million was just a fraction of the actual payment. Naruto's heart sank. If 5 million was just a fraction, then what was the actual price? 10 million? 100 million? Maybe even into the billions. What should they do? What could they do? Perhaps we could make an arrangement, Naruto said. The man ran a hand through his hair. Go ahead, I get paid by the hour. Naruto started making his offer, a deal that involved a mutual return from the entire syndicate if the man would simply let Inari and his mother fall into their possession. As he talked, his hand slowly reached for the grip of his katana. If he could maybe reach it, then he could try that Ijutsu move that Keitaro used on Zabuza back in the restaurant and subdue the man. He would need to move quickly and without hesitation so he wouldn't give the man the edge he needed. He glanced at his hand for a second to see that it was inches away from Kitsune. Why did I sheathe that stupid thing? He thought to himself. He wrapped his hand firmly around the katana and stepped forward. Clang. Naruto stopped. He looked down, expecting to find a blade protruding into his chest and was relieved to find there wasn't. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and looked up. Zabuza's sword stood directly in the path of the man's Uchigatana. Haku was holding it, albeit with difficulty. The man cocked his head to the side in surprise. You can't use Ijutsu on an Uchigatana, idiot. Idiot. Dead last. Loser. Deep in the depths of Naruto's mind, gears turned. Every bad memory from the academy flashed through his mind. In an instant, Naruto lost his cool and unsheathed Kitsune with a forward stabbing motion. It was not an intentional stab, nor was it directed at the man. It was more of an instinctive reaction towards his childhood. Naruto had been called an idiot more than enough times at the academy, especially by Sasuke, and he would have no more of it. Why was he called the idiot? because he tried the hardest and accomplished nothing. Did anyone ever think of helping him, even once? No. On the contrary, everyone always watched from the side and laughed. It was as if his whole life in the academy had been for their entertainment. He was nothing more than a jester, a clown, meant to entertain the other kids with his own misfortunes. He would make them pay. "Nar boss Kitsune," Haku said. Naruto came out of his trance and looked at Haku. His fox mask had been removed to reveal a worried face. What was that? IG managed. He was standing in the back, in front of Tsunami and Inari protectively. On his face was an expression of sheer, unimagined terror. Behind him, Inari's mother was holding her son close, as if to protect him from some monster. All it took was for Naruto to look forward to see the cause of their concern. The man had been thrown to the other side of the room, lying unconscious behind the desk, which was broken in half. On the wall behind him was a large indent on the stone that vaguely resembled a human body. Naruto's mouth hung open in surprise. What happened? You don't remember? Haku inquired. Naruto had no idea how to respond to that. He had been here the whole time but had no memory of the desk breaking or the man passing out. Maybe Naruto didn't know his own strength. He laughed at the thought and pushed it aside. Haku hesitantly walked over to the man and checked his wrist. I can't find a pulse. He's dead. Dead? Naruto heard Inari murmur behind him. Silence filled the room. Haku looked at Naruto with the same calm, passive face he had always seen but knew otherwise. Despite his collected demeanor, Haku was horrified. The air of the room was heavy with it. Horror. For some reason, knowing this filled Naruto with dread. Naruto didn't need to turn around to see the looks of the others' faces. He already knew what he would see. He had seen it dozens of times before. Experience had taught that two types of people existed in Konoha: those who hated him and those who simply tolerated him. Those who hated him did so out of spite for reasons he could not begin to understand. The ones who tolerated him, who allowed him in their presence, did so fearfully. A young Naruto didn't need to talk to the villagers to know this. Actions would always speak louder than words, and it was no different in Naruto's case. He may have been allowed near them, but that didn't stop the cold stares from coming. All eyes were on him wherever he went. Whether they were filled with dread, fear, anxiety, anger, spite, or hate depended on the person. A lump formed in his throat and his chest became heavy. He wanted to cry. The very thing he hated most about Konoha, the one thing he thought he had left behind, would happen to here. He wanted to let out a loud wail of despair but knew better. He couldn't show emotion. His eyes would betray him if anyone looked into them, so he closed them right away and tried his best to clear his mind and relax himself. He cast his gaze downward to avoid eye contact with everyone in the room. He had killed before, had he not? What made this death so different? Had he gone into a psychotic frenzy without realizing it? No, that couldn't be it. There was no blood on him or Kitsune. It had to have been something else. But what? The weight of Kitsune began to take its toll on his hands. He replaced the weapon in its sheath to relieve himself of it. He took a deep, strained breath to relax himself before sitting down on the floor. Boss, IG said, what was that? A second ago. Slowly, his goofy trademark smile adorned itself on his face. He cocked his head back to look at IG and said, oh, nothing. Let's just get out of here, okay? Boss, we have to return these two to the bridge builder, Naruto stated childishly. He popped his eyes open to see a small smile crack itself on Inari's face. Tazuna lay in his futon, trying his best to go to sleep. His mind, however, was fraught with worry for his missing daughter and grandchild. It seemed like an eternity passed since the day of their kidnapping. He was promised no harm would come to them if he stopped the construction on the bridge and, as any father, grandfather would have, consequently did as he was told. Despite this, nearly 2 weeks had flown by without word from the villains who kidnapped them. He had no idea if they were still alive, except for the hope that he could trust the men responsible. Even then, there was no reason to trust scoundrels as low as the Yakuza. He knew what they were capable of, with the memory of his de facto son-in-law Kaiza still fresh in his head. The Konoha shinobi Haddock Sharing and Kakashi promised he and his team would search for them and bring them back. The promise brought some hope to Tazuna, but hope cannot live off weeks of fruitless searching. It jerked a tear in his eye to think about their efforts to save his kin while he wasted away idly. Kakashi had suggested he not do anything, in case someone was watching the house, but Tazuna couldn't fight the feeling of uselessness that was welling inside of him. He wanted to go out there and help look for them, but knew he couldn't without endangering the lives of Tsunami and Inari. All he could do was hope and pray for their safety while the Jonin known as Kakashi and his genin searched relentlessly. It was then that a thought crossed his mind. Perhaps they were already dead and the promise of their safe return was a mere ruse to stop the bridge's completion. He choked back a sob at the thought and rose from his futon to fetch a drink from the kitchen. Sake had always helped him when he needed to sleep or take his mind off things. As he reached the kitchen, it occurred to him that he shouldn't because his daughter did not approve of his drinking habits. "You're setting a bad example for Inari, father," she would say to him. "Do you want your grandson growing up to be an alcoholic like you? If you're going to drink, can you at least wait until Inari isn't around?" He chuckled as he remembered her words, which brought tears to his eyes. With one large gulp, he drank half a bottle of sake in one go. It had a bitter taste that left a burning sensation in his mouth. It was a hot night, so H loosened the neck of his shirt so that he could air himself out and took another drink. The second mouthful had a cool, crisp taste which told him the sake was doing his job. He went outside of his house and decided to sit on the porch. It was a dark, starry night filled with the many noises of busy wildlife. He watched the flow of water of a stream just outside his house, listening carefully to the sound of the water running accompanied with the croaking of toads. Somewhere in the distance, beyond a tree line, there was a faint fiery glow. The docks are probably busy again, he thought to himself as he took another sip of the sake. Now that he thought about it, the glow seemed to be growing closer and brighter. "I think I drank too much," he said to no one in particular. "I'll probably go back to bed after this bottle's empty." He sat out for a little while longer, occasionally taking a sip of the alcohol, and listened to the calm sound of the water flowing past the stream. A half an hour went by before he saw a small group of people approaching his house. After half an hour of drinking pure sake, his mind had become unable to properly register his surroundings through his drunken fog. The silhouettes of the party members were only barely visible from his porch. As the party drew closer, he found something vaguely familiar about two of the members. As the party drew closer, he realized he knew the two, his only daughter and young grandson. He blinked in disbelief, believing right away that they were products of his stress and alcohol consumption. Taking another swig of his alcohol, he decided it would be best to ignore his hallucinations. Eventually, the group stopped right outside his house, and one wearing a fox mask came forward. He looked Tazuna in the eye and said, "Do you know who I am?" "No," Tazuna answered. He snickered quietly and jokingly added, "Although judging by your mask, I'd assume you're a kitsune spirit." The kitsune spirit fell silent and looked at the sake bottle in Tazuna's hand. Tazuna took another swig of it and said, "So what do you want, O wise and noble fox spirit?" "We are going to return your family to you," the fox spirit said to the old man, whose eyes widened in surprise. Was this a real offer or was his mind suffering from a delusion? It seemed so real. The only thing wrong with the entire picture was that he was talking to a fox spirit. Then again, he had been drinking. Maybe this whole thing was a product of his mind out of desperation to see his family. Of course, it would take more than a little sake to make Tazuna fall for whatever delusions his mind created. "Sorry, not interested." The fox spirit cocked his head to the side and curiously asked, "Aren't you at least concerned for the well-being of your family?" "Not if they're products of my alcoholism," Tazuna retorted sarcastically. The fox spirit examined the bottle in his hand and stated, "You're drunk." "Well, of course, how else could a fox spirit be talking to me?" Tazuna retorted. The fox spirit frowned and withdrew a needle from a bag around his waist. "I fully understand," it added before felt a sharp stabbing pain in his left leg. Tazuna dropped his bottle of sake and let out a howl of pain. The sudden stab had cleared his mind of the drunken haze. Now, all he felt was unbearable pain. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the words, "Father," and "Grandpa." This pain was almost indefinitely real. If the pain was real, then the fox spirit or whatever it was almost assuredly was. He fell back on his porch, squeezing his knee with both hands to try and stop the flow of blood. "What are you?" Tazuna inquired more seriously, as the fox spirit pulled the needle out of his knee and replaced it in his bag. "I am a representative of Boss Kitsune of the Kitsune Syndicate." What do you want?" Tazuna said. "Are you going to kill me?" "No," the Kitsune gangster said. "I already told you what we want, to return your family to you, daughter and grandson." "Yeah, right," Tazuna choked back. The pain in his knee was aching terribly, "so you can kill us all. We have no intention of harming you or your family. We simply wanted to return your family to you," the gangster said. "In exchange, all we ask the finished construction of the bridge." "The bridge?" Tazuna repeated. The gangster nodded. "We know you're probably concerned for the lives of your family, your workers and their families. I am here to assure you that no further harm will come to them. Make the construction on the bridge your biggest concern." "Understood. I understand," Tazuna answered, gritting his teeth to distract himself from the pain. The gangster and his party left, leaving behind Tsunami and Inari, who were both running towards the old man. Tezuna felt a pair of arms wrap themselves around him. "Father, are you all right?" "Tsunami," he murmured, before passing out from the pain. Naruto had thanked Ig and Haku for what they had done and instructed them to meet him at the restaurant tomorrow so that they could discuss the matter concerning the Watari. They each went their separate ways afterwards, Naruto heading straight back to the safe house. He arrived at the safe and walked through the front door only to be thrown down to the ground. He heard Keitaro's voice boom loudly, "You idiot." Naruto looked up to see Keitaro holding him pinned to the ground with a katana aimed directly at his chest. Naruto's heart skipped a beat upon seeing Keitaro's cold, angry face. In his eyes, Naruto could see nothing but malice and a desire to kill. The blonde's mind raced, trying to figure out what Keitaro was doing. Was Keitaro going to kill him? Was he a traitor within Hashi's ranks? Would he die right here and now before he realized what was happening? Keitaro raised his hand in the air and slapped Naruto across the face. "What in heaven's name were you thinking? What are you talking about?" Naruto said, exasperatedly. "I'm talking about your little gang," Keitaro fumed. Naruto's face paled. Keitaro knew. But how? Had someone told him? Whatever the cause, the future did not bode well for Naruto. Keitaro released Naruto and ran a hand through his hair. Naruto scrambled back onto his feet and patted the dust off him. "The Kitsune Syndicate," Keitaro murmured. Keitaro spun around in place and began, "Are you crazy? Boss Hashi sent you to the land of waves to keep you out of trouble, and you repay him by creating a gang and starting a gang war. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking that I would solve the bridge builder problem," Naruto said, "since you were too restrained by politics. So you start a gang war?" Keitaro asked with contempt. "The gang war wasn't my idea," Naruto reasoned. "It sort of just happened before anything could be done about it." "Naruto," he seethed. Keitaro reached into his pocket and pulled out a cigarette. He rolled between his fingers several times before lighting it and saying, "You just don't get it, do you, Naruto?" "Get what?" Naruto inquired. Keitaro started pacing around Naruto, as if to examine every inch of his body. After coming full circle, he took a long drag on his cigarette and flicked the ash onto the table. "What it means to be Ninkayo Dantai." "I know what Ninkayo Dantai means," Naruto answered. Of course he knew what it meant. It only had one meaning. What did Keitaro take him for? Naruto went on. "It means chivalrous organization, a group of people who look out for others." "No it doesn't," Keitaro answered, "or rather, not exactly. You see, Naruto, there are two kinds of Yakuza, the Ninkayo Dantai and the Basuzoku. The Basuzoku are men who become Yakuza for their own gains, money, power, and women. The Ninkayo Dantai are men who become Yakuza because they had no other choice. Their families disowned them or they couldn't fit it. The Basuzoku are fools because they have no idea how to attain their goals any other way. Don't get me wrong, both groups do awful things to survive in this world. At least the Ninkayo Dantai tries to be decent. But, just shut up," Keitaro said. "It's obvious to me that you're still too young to understand what I mean. Just go to your room and go to bed. I have to make arrangements to clean up this mess." The next day, Haku appeared to tell Naruto that Ig had been murdered that morning along with all of his subordinates. Every business underneath Ig's protection had been claimed in the name of the Kuroihi. Immediately, Naruto understood what Keitaro meant by clean up this mess. Surprisingly, construction on the bridge was not hindered since news of the Kitsune's fall was still not public knowledge. As far as the public at large was concerned, Ig was still alive and commanding the Kitsune. A week afterwards, the bridge was finished and subsequently named the Kaiza Memorial Bridge. Apparently, Kaiza was a well-known hero in the village, and the villagers felt it only natural to name the bridge after him since it was originally constructed to battle Gatu's monopoly, which Kaiza had died doing. The Konoha shinobi left the day after, with a large send-off for their efforts from the villagers. The same day, Keitaro decided it would be safe for Naruto to resume his training in Kenjutsu. It was a good thing too since Naruto's skill had dulled to an extent. The training sessions were long and grueling, interrupted only by Keitaro's business associates whom stopped by every few days. A month later, they received a letter from Hashi-sensei that declared it safe for Naruto to return since Konoha officially labeled him as deceased in the bingo book.
So this was it for today. I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.